She came home on a Tuesday. Not the kind of Tuesday that meant grocery shopping or coffee with friends. This Tuesday was gray, cold, and the airport terminal in San Antonio smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. Her name was Captain Maya Rivas, and she had been a soldier for 8 years. She had led convoys through Helmand Province, trained Afghan police units, and survived 3 separate IED blasts before the 4th one finally took her leg. The prosthetic was new. Titanium and carbon fiber, with a hydraulic ankle that clicked when she walked. She hated the click. It sounded like a clock counting down all the things she could no longer do. The doctors at Walter Reed had called her recovery remarkable. The physical therapists used words like resilient and determined, but Maya knew the truth. She woke up most nights reaching for a leg that wasn't there. She dreamed of dust and heat, and the sound of her own voice shouting orders that disappeared into the wind. Her mother picked her up from the airport. They did not cry. The Rivas family had never been the crying type. Her mother just hugged her too long and said, "You're home." Like those 2 words could erase everything that happened 14 months ago in a village called Tangi. Maya nodded and got into the passenger seat. She did not tell her mother that the vibration of the car made her phantom limb ache. She did not say that the prosthetic socket was rubbing a raw spot on her residual limb. She just stared out the window at the Texas scrubland and counted the miles until she could be alone. Home was a small house outside of Killeen, near Fort Hood. The neighborhood was full of military families. Lawns were neat. Flags flew on porches. It was the kind of place where everyone understood what deployment meant, but no one knew how to talk about what came after. Maya had been back for 3 days when the first letter arrived. It was from the Department of the Army, formal and cold, offering her a position as a liaison officer at the Pentagon. Desk job, promotion to major. She read it twice and set it on the kitchen table. The paper seemed to mock her. She had not lost her leg in a desk accident. She was supposed to be grateful. Everyone told her that. You're alive. You're walking. You have a future. But Maya could not shake the memory of that day in Tangi. The convoy had been ambushed. 3 vehicles, 12 soldiers, and a dirt road that curved through a narrow valley. The Taliban had waited until the lead truck passed the first ridge, then hit them with RPGs from both sides. Maya's vehicle was the second in line. She had been thrown from the turret when the first rocket struck. Her gunner, a kid named Private First Class Michael Torres, was trapped inside the burning hull. She crawled back. She dragged him out through the driver's side window while bullets tore up the ground around her. And then the second IED went off. The one that had been hidden under the drainage ditch. She felt the shock wave before she heard the sound. The last thing she remembered was looking down and seeing her left foot pointing the wrong way. Torres survived. He sent her a letter every week for 6 months. She never wrote back. Not because she was angry. She just did not know what to say. What words could possibly explain that she would trade her leg for his life again without hesitation? That the choice had not been a choice at all. It was just what you did. The weeks dragged on. Maya fell into a rhythm that was not healing but survival. She woke up. She did her exercises. She ate food she did not taste. She watched television shows she did not follow. Her prosthetic became a part of her daily resentment. She learned to walk without a limp most of the time, but the fatigue was constant. Her body burned extra calories just to move. Her back hurt from the altered gait. Her shoulders ached from the crutches she still kept by the bed. Her old unit threw a welcome home party at a bar in Killeen. She went for an hour. People slapped her on the back and called her a hero. She smiled and nodded and drank a beer that tasted like nothing. A sergeant she had trained years ago asked her if she was going to write a book. Another asked if she had considered motivational speaking. Maya excused herself to the bathroom, stood in the stall with her hand over her mouth, and did not cry. She had not cried since the day they told her the leg could not be saved. The anger came later. It was not loud anger. It was quiet and deep, like groundwater seeping into a basement. She was angry at the Taliban. She was angry at the generals who sent her there. She was angry at her own body for failing her. And she was angry at a man she had never met, Rear Admiral James K. Hollister, a Navy SEAL general who had commanded special operations in Afghanistan during her last deployment. She had seen his face on the news. She had read his quotes about winning the peace and sacrifice without bitterness. He had never lost a leg. He had never held a soldier who was bleeding out. He had never had to tell a mother that her son would walk again, but her daughter would not. The anger was irrational, and Maya knew it. But knowing did not stop it. One afternoon in late October, her phone rang. The caller ID said Dio de Pentagon. She almost ignored it. Instead, she answered. A calm voice on the other end said, "Captain Rivas, Rear Admiral Hollister would like to meet with you. He is coming to Fort Hood next week. He has specifically requested your presence." Maya felt her jaw tighten. "What does he want?" she asked. The voice said, "He would like to thank you in person." She nearly said no. She had no interest in being a photo op for a flag officer's morale tour. But her commanding officer, a colonel who had fought for her to stay on active duty, called her personally. "Maya," he said, "just show up. Sit in the chair. Nod when he talks. Then it's over," she agreed. Not out of respect for the admiral, but out of respect for the colonel. The meeting was set for a Wednesday morning at the Fort Hood headquarters building. Maya wore her dress uniform. The jacket felt tight across her shoulders. She had lost weight since the injury, and nothing fit the way it used to. The prosthetic leg was hidden beneath her trousers, but she could feel every eye in the building drop to her gait as she walked down the hallway. Officers saluted. Civilians stared. She had grown used to it, but used to it was not the same as comfortable. The conference room was large and sterile. American flags flanked a screen that displayed a satellite image of Afghanistan. A long table sat in the center, polished to a mirror shine. Maya arrived early, chose a seat near the door, and waited. She did not stand when the admiral entered. Rear Admiral Hollister was not what she expected. He was tall, built like a man who still ran marathons, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of face that had seen things. He moved like a seal, quiet, efficient, aware of every corner of the room. He was not accompanied by an entourage of public affairs officers. He carried no binder. He simply walked in, looked at Maya, and said, "Captain Rivas, thank you for coming." She gave him a short nod. "Sir." He sat down across from her, not at the head of the table. Across from her, close enough that she could see the small scar above his left eyebrow and the way his hands rested flat on the wood. For a long moment, he did not speak. He just looked at her, not the way people usually looked at her with pity or curiosity or awkward admiration. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face. "I read your file," he said. "All of it. The incident report, the medical records, the award citations, the witness statements from your soldiers." He paused. "I know you saved Private Torres. I know you went back into a burning vehicle while under direct fire. I know you pulled him out with a broken leg and then stayed in the kill zone to return cover fire until your men could reach you." Maya said nothing. She had heard versions of these words before. They were medals on paper. They were not the truth, but that's not why I asked to meet you, the admiral continued. His voice dropped slightly. "I asked to meet you because 3 years ago, I was in Tangi, the same village, 20 miles north of the route your convoy took. My team was pinned down in a canyon for 18 hours. We called for extraction, and the birds couldn't get in because of the weather. We called for artillery, and the rounds landed too close. I watched 2 of my men die that day. I held one of them while he bled out from a femoral wound. I couldn't save him. I couldn't even put a tourniquet on fast enough." Maya's throat tightened. She had not expected this. She had expected a speech about bravery and the flag and the cost of freedom. She had expected a medal pinning and a handshake and a photograph for some general's annual report. "I don't tell you this to compare wounds," Hollister said. "I tell you this because I need you to understand something. When I saw your file, I recognized a name in the witness statements. A sergeant who was with your platoon. He had been with my team 2 years earlier. He told me about you. Not just what you did. Who you are." The admiral leaned forward. "He told me that after the blast, when the medics were cutting off your boot, you weren't yelling about the pain. You were yelling about your soldiers. You wanted to know who was hit. You wanted to know if the convoy had cleared the ambush zone. You did not ask about your leg until they loaded you onto the medevac." Maya felt the room tilt. She had not thought about that moment in months. The helicopter. The morphine. The flight medic who held her hand and said, "Stay with me, Captain." She had stayed. She had always stayed. "I'm not here to give you a medal," Hollister said. "You already have more than enough metal on your chest. I'm here because I need your help." The words hung in the air. Maya blinked. My help, sir. I'm putting together a task force. Special operations. Wounded warriors who want to stay in the fight. Not desk jobs. Not medical boards. Real operational roles. Intelligence analysts. Mission planners. Trainers. You know the language. You know the terrain. You know what works and what doesn't. And more importantly, you know what it costs. Maya stared at him. Her heart was beating faster than it should. The phantom limb in her missing leg was screaming. Sir, she said slowly, I have one leg. Admiral Hollister did not flinch. Yes, and I have two eyes that work, but my left ear is almost useless from an IED in Ramadi. We're all broken, Captain. The question is whether we break forward. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him that she was tired, that she had given enough, that the army owed her a quiet life in a quiet house with a quiet job that did not require her to think about dust and blood and the sound of RPGs, but the words would not come. Because the truth was simpler and harder. She missed it. She missed the mission. She missed the soldiers. She missed being useful in a way that had nothing to do with productivity or promotions or performance reviews. What would I be doing? She asked her. Hollister smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had just heard the enemy's code crack. You'd be helping me build a training program for special operators who have been wounded and want to return to duty. Not just physical rehab, tactical rehab, mental rehab. You'd be teaching them how to fight with limitations, how to lead with scars, how to come home without coming apart. Maya looked down at her hands. They were shaking slightly. She pressed them flat against the table. I'm not a role model, she said. I don't need a role model, Hollister said. I need a soldier. And you are still a soldier, Captain. The army didn't take that from you. The Taliban didn't take that from you. You're the only one who can give it away. So don't. That night, Maya sat on her back porch and watched the stars appear over Texas. The air was cool and dry. Her prosthetic leg leaned against the railing. She had taken it off an hour ago, and the relief of pressure was almost painful. Her mother brought her a cup of tea and sat beside her without speaking. They stayed that way for a long time. In the morning, Maya called the number Admiral Hollister had left. She accepted the position. The first 6 months of the task force were chaos. Maya arrived at the temporary headquarters in Virginia Beach to find a converted warehouse, 3 desks, and a whiteboard covered in acronyms she did not understand. Admiral Hollister had secured funding from the Pentagon, but no one had told the bureaucracy that wounded warriors needed things like ramps, accessible bathrooms, and chairs that did not dig into residual limbs. She fixed most of it herself. She learned to negotiate with contractors. She learned to translate medical jargon into operational requirements. She learned that being a woman with a prosthetic leg in a room full of SEALs and Green Berets meant she had to be twice as sharp and half as patient. The men she trained were not the broken ones. They were the ones the system had given up on. A Green Beret who had lost 3 fingers on his left hand. A Ranger who had taken shrapnel to the spine and walked with a cane. A female pilot who had been burned over 40% of her body and still wanted to fly. And then there were the invisible ones, the ones with traumatic brain injuries, severe PTSD, and the hollow look of people who had seen too much. Maya recognized that look. She saw it in the mirror every morning. She designed the training program from scratch. It was not about physical fitness, though that was part of it. It was about problem solving under pressure. She took them to the woods and made them navigate with one eye covered. She took them to the shooting range and made them reload with one hand. She took them to the pool and made them tread water while wearing backpacks. And every night, she sat with them in the common room and listened. She learned that the Green Beret could not hold his daughter's hand without dropping things. She learned that the Ranger could not sit in a car for more than an hour without his back spasming. She learned that the pilot dreamed of fire and woke up screaming. Hollister checked in every week. He did not micromanage. He asked questions. What do you need? Who is struggling? Who is surprising you? Maya told him the truth. She told him about the Ranger who had broken down during a night navigation exercise, convinced he was back in Afghanistan. She told him about the pilot who had finished the obstacle course last but refused to quit. She told him about a SEAL on her roster who had lost his leg above the knee and could still outrun most able-bodied men on his prosthetic. After 8 months, the task force received its first real mission. A classified operation in the Horn of Africa, intelligence gathering, local liaison training, and a high-risk extraction if things went wrong. Hollister wanted to send a team of wounded warriors as support. Maya would lead them. She flew to Djibouti with 14 soldiers, all of them missing something. A leg, an arm, an eardrum, a piece of their memory. They were the forgotten casualties, the ones who had been told their war was over. Maya refused to believe it. The mission was uneventful for the first 10 days. They established a forward operating base near the Ethiopian border. They trained a platoon of Somali soldiers in basic marksmanship and medical evacuation. They drank bad coffee and slept in shifts and learned each other's triggers. Maya discovered that the Green Beret with 3 fingers hated fireworks. The Ranger with the cane could not stand being touched from behind. The burned pilot needed a night light to sleep. They accommodated each other without comment. That was the unspoken rule. You respect my wreckage. I'll respect yours. On the 11th day, everything changed. A local intelligence source reported that an American journalist was being held by an Al-Shabaab affiliate in a compound 40 kilometers south of their position. The extraction would require a night infiltration, multiple vehicle movement, and a casualty evacuation plan. The journalist had been missing for 2 weeks. The State Department had no assets in the region. The nearest conventional unit was 6 hours away. Hollister called Maya directly. "I can send a SEAL team from Bahrain," he said. "They'll be there in 18 hours. Or you can go now and save 12 of those hours." "Your call." Maya looked at her team. They were tired. They were hungry. The Green Beret's hand was swollen from the humidity. The Ranger was limping more than usual. The pilot had a fever from a minor infection. But they were also ready. They had been training for this moment, not the specific mission, but the call. The moment when the system said can't, and they said watch me, we go now, Maya said. The operation was brutal. They moved in darkness, using night vision goggles that weighed down their helmets and made their necks ache. The terrain was rocky and steep. Maya's prosthetic leg slipped twice on loose gravel, and each time, she caught herself before anyone noticed. The Green Beret drove the lead vehicle with his 3-fingered hand clamped around the steering wheel. The Ranger rode in the gunner's position, his cane strapped to his back, his eyes scanning the horizon. The pilot navigated from the back seat, her burned fingers tracing the map coordinates. They reached the compound at 0200 hours. 3 buildings. 8 hostels by last count. The journalist was believed to be in the central structure. Maya split her team into 2 elements. The Green Beret and the Ranger would take the eastern flank. She would take the western flank with the pilot and 2 others. The plan was simple. Breach, extract, exfiltrate. No heroics. No unnecessary engagement. The breach went wrong immediately. A dog barked. A guard turned. Shots were fired. The Green Beret took around to his plate carrier and went down hard. The Ranger dragged him behind a wall while returning fire with his non-dominant hand. Maya heard the chaos over the radio and made a split-second decision. She left her western position and ran across open ground toward the eastern side. The prosthetic leg was screaming. The socket was grinding into her bone. She did not stop. She found the Green Beret on his back, gasping for air. The bullet had not penetrated his armor, but the impact had cracked her ribs. He could not breathe properly. He could not fight. The Ranger was holding the corridor with a rifle in one hand and his cane in the other. Maya took command. She directed the pilot to provide suppressing fire from an elevated position. She called in the second vehicle for extraction. And then she did something she had not done since Tangi. She ran into the central building alone. The journalist was in a back room, chained to a radiator. She was a woman in her 30s, emaciated and terrified. Maya cut the chains with bolt cutters she had strapped to her vest. The woman was too weak to walk. Maya lifted her onto her back and carried her out. The weight was immense. The prosthetic leg slipped twice. The 3rd time, Maya fell to her knees and kept crawling. She crawled through dirt and broken glass and the smell of gunpowder. She crawled until the Ranger appeared and took the journalist from her arms. They exfiltrated under enemy fire. The vehicles took multiple hits. The pilot was grazed by a bullet on her left arm. The Green Beret was coughing blood. But they made it. They drove 6 hours to the extraction point and loaded everyone onto a Black Hawk. The journalist was airlifted to a hospital in Djibouti. The team was debriefed and medevaced back to Virginia Beach.